This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Touchdown! No! Long into the windup and his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and this.
Doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down, Mike over three. Yes, she is gone.
You may fire when ready.
What?
Good morning, Cubs and Cardinals fans, and welcome to the Team of Rivals podcast. It's Saturday, April 20th. If you were here just waiting for us to come on, then you had a very entertaining listen as Ron struggled with his webcam. If not, go back, listen to it. Good times being had by all. You can follow us on social media at Team of Rivals Pod for those of you who prefer to watch the show. We also post to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So hit the like and subscribe buttons and be sure that notifications are on so that you know anytime we post new content. You can find more great podcasts and blog networks or blog content on the Gateway City and Fuel Sports networks. Joining me for this week's show, co-founder of TOR, number 151 on the 2023 edition of C70's Top Cards on Twitter, and definitely going to rocket up the ratings this year because he's having arguments with his webcam. Wow, I can't even put you in to duo mode because your camera's not working. So, folks, you just get to look at me and listen to Ron.
Just you. Yep.
Just me. This is great. This is exactly what we were hoping for when we decided we were going to go. Anyway, here we are. Good times. And Ron, you know what? I realized it when I woke up this morning and thought, oh, this is going to be great. We'll have, we can make fun of Elliott not being on here and living up to his permanent occasional guest host title.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized we can't give him a hard time for this because you see, today is a national holiday for him. It's 420. We can't make fun of a guy for taking the day off on a day he celebrates. So to Elliott and all those who celebrate today, happy 420 day. May you finally see the road through the haze. We appreciate all of you. And thank you for getting up on a Saturday and joining us.
Well, it's a lot of effort.
Apparently way more effort than we expected when we decided that we were going to do this this morning, whenever it was.
Yeah, well, true, whenever it was. But yeah, it's just kind of the more simpler we try to make things, like you've tried to make this whole process simple, the harder it is to fix shit. I don't know what's worse. This is why I do audio, Pete. That's why I only stick to audio.
So actually, you're not having a problem. You're not having a problem with your camera at all today. You're just pretending that you are, so that you don't have to put your beautiful mug on.
No! If you go back and listen to the audio pre,
oh yeah,
you'll it's pretty legit.
I might have to release that just as a show clip.
In my
that was entertaining.
In my defense, I think I handle it a lot better these days than I had in the past. You may or may not recall. I'd pretty much lose my shit when things weren't working.
Yep. Well, you know, you've mellowed now that you're a girl dad.
No, I was doing that when I had Emily. So I don't know. It must be something else. Age?
I think it's age.
Testosterone just dead?
Yeah. Something like that.
a little bit of that. Probably a lot of that.
Yep. So the reason that, we didn't want to, well, I in particular didn't want the week to pass without us doing something, obviously it was because big news in Cardinals land. Ron, it's your team, so you get to talk about it first.
Yeah, gosh, I think my earliest memories of, I guess when I came into fandom and was paying attention, it was during those 80s Cardinals teams, right? Probably started really paying attention, maybe age 9. I know people brag that they do it earlier, like out of the womb, in the womb. But it was really about age 9, I think, when I started coming around, when I started actually watching games. And of course, remember at that time, I wasn't able to watch a lot of baseball on TV. The Cubs and the Braves were the only, I think at the time, 2 teams that had their games on nationally, like all of them. I could watch the Cardinals when they were playing the Cubs. I could watch the Cardinals when they were playing the Braves. And then when they were in the playoffs, which they were quite often in the 80s. But it was really 1985 that year when I started coming around. And that was, of course, the era of Whitey ball. I wasn't, I didn't care in 1982 enough to pay attention when they won. But by 85, I'd been playing baseball myself, in Little League. So I started understanding the game a lot better. And they had a unique style of baseball, I think, for the time. A team built around speed, built around the concept of manufacturing runs, making things happen. And it was entertaining. His impact on the organization goes all the way back to, probably 1980. When he moved over from Kansas City to the Cardinals, was kind of like GM and manager at the same time, and made a lot of necessary changes within the organization. Brought guys in like Ozzie Smith, brought Bruce Sutter in. There's obviously a long list of players that they had in those 80s teams that really stand out. He made the deal for Jack Clark to bring in a big bat in 1985. I'm not sure when the Willie McGee trade happened, if that was under his watch, but it was another player. Vince Coleman obviously called up in rookie year in 1985. Still, only stole like 110 bases. It was just it was fun baseball to watch. There was always something happening with the Cardinals. I didn't feel like you had that dead space within a game because they were quick. They had good defense. The park was a little bit bigger then too. But yeah, it was a good decade there of just fun baseball, and his team's style of play brought baseball. He ushered in a different era of Cardinals baseball. The 70s weren't very kind to them. Coming out of the 60s with, the era of Bob Gibson and Lou Brock and that whole group. They won a couple World Series, and I think they appeared in 3 in the 60s, won 2 of them. And then they kind of went away in the 1970s. It was rough, and he brought it back. So we've lost a lot of Red Jackets really in the last, call it 3 years, I guess, since COVID. We lost Lou Brock, Gibson, Red Schoendienst, Mike Shannon, 50 years behind the mic. Bruce Sutter passed away. We've lost a lot of those Red Jackets over the years, and this is just, one of the latest. So it'll be a little bit different on opening day, and it already has been for many years, just to not see those guys there. So what's this next generation? Who do we look to? What's going to represent them? I don't know what the deal is with Albert and his personal services contract with the Angels, but you'd love to see a player like that kind of back into the fold on a regular basis. Of course, we still have Ozzie. We've got Scott Rowland's a Hall of Famer now, and he's wearing a Cardinals hat. So he wasn't here, obviously, for over 10 years. So that does feel a little bit different. We have Cardinals Hall of Famers. But yeah, it's the guard has turned over, and this is just one of the latest, and it feels close to being like one of the last from that kind of that generation where I grew up and my dad grew up. So yeah, it's like full turnover, man. It's he was getting up there. He was 92 years old. So, these guys aren't going to be around forever. It's sad to see another one in such a close proximity. All these guys have passed away. Tim McCarver is another one I didn't remember, but yeah, that's what it is. It's a little somber.
Yeah. And, we've talked about this a lot in the past as well. My first memory, my first baseball memory anyway, was the 1982 World Series. Obviously, my family being from Wisconsin, they were very much invested in the Brewers angle of that. But I got to see some really exciting baseball. So the first time that I watched baseball, I was seeing the Cardinals run wild, and I was a little bit outraged that Ben Ogilvy had a home run robbed and then had a fan pull it out of his glove and ended up injured on the play as well. I think he pulled a rib or something, or pulled a rib muscle. I didn't really know what was going on, but I knew that it was exciting, and that was honestly the first thing that got me the least bit interested in baseball.
If I knew you were going to bring that example up, I would have pulled the clip.
Yeah, I know. I would have too.
Our friend Mark Littell, yet another one. Obviously Mark wasn't he wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he was a Hall of Famer for us for sure. I wish I would have pulled that clip, because remember what he said when you brought that example up. He's like, "Nah, anything goes."
Yep. So, I know. Yeah, but something that I didn't really realize until I was reading the encomiums this past week is that Whitey was the architect of the '69 Mets. So he's obviously very closely identified with the Cardinals, but that wasn't the beginning and end of his baseball career, right? He was he's distinguished, a very deserving Hall of Famer, and it is obviously it's a loss for the St. Louis community, but it's also a loss for baseball in general. And I think you're absolutely right. We're losing this generation little by little, and you wonder how much of a connection fans are going to have, because there's a reverence for Whitey that's never going to go away. And fans now are so online and so fickle in their tastes. You mentioned Albert. Our Cardinals fans, and I imagine they will because he's so transcendent, but are Cardinals fans gonna forgive him leaving and going to the Angels, right? And whatever his personal services contract is, I'm sure eventually when that ends, he'll come back to St. Louis. But you just wonder what will be missed if he'll be held in the same regard that Whitey was. So hats off to Whitey, though. And I'm sure that if Elliott was here, he'd have something incredibly smart to say.
He would. Yeah, speaking of the exception of Bruce Bochy, who's that manager that carries that stature these days, right? Who are those managers out there that kind of have that thing where they're going to be respected even if you have the highest paid athlete on the team? They're still looking at their manager with kind of a little bit of a whoa. I better sit up straight, tighten up my tie. Skipper's in here, right? Like who are those guys that are left in the game that can kind of command that kind of respect? La Russa was obviously one of them.
Joe Torre was. You had these very, very smart baseball guys. I'm not saying the managers we have these days aren't intelligent, because they're armed with a lot more information. Obviously, doesn't make them great leaders. Doesn't make them, doesn't give them that whatever those guys carried. I look around and where is that? Sure, they're smart baseball guys, but when you hear stories about like Skip Schumacher, not he might be a short term there at Miami. Bringing in all of these players that played in the league, and boy, they can sure be coaches. Let's make them coaches, and then they abandon them in 2 or 3 years. So who are these managers that are going to come along? They're going to stick with a club for a decade, or a decade and a half, or 2 decades, right? Like, is that going to happen anymore? Is it just going to be this constant rotation of I ain't working, jettison, not working, fire, not working, not renew? Like, it's just it feels like college sports, man, where you got a bunch of Lane Kiffins basically managing baseball teams. They're going to be there for short term. I don't know, but he's one of those that, for a decade he was a staple, and I just wonder, if that's forever going to have that again, other than, a guy like Bochy, which even Bochy wasn't, hasn't been with clubs for as long as Whitey and TLR have, but he's the only one left I can think of that has that kind of, he could walk into a dugout and I think everybody's going to get quiet and listen. Yeah. Well, you think about, for example, I think he was one of the longest tenured until he moved. Craig Counsell, he was with the Brewers for, I believe it was 9 seasons.
Yeah.
And you would like to think, right? You look at the esteem that he's held in baseball and also the contract that he obviously has, and you would think you could see Craig Counsell retiring with the Cubs. But it also wouldn't surprise me if things go to plan and the Cubs win another World Series and Jed Hoyer says, well, I've done what I've came here to do and I'm going to step down and let somebody else take the reins. You could see the next general manager saying, hey, you know what? I want to bring in my own manager as good as Craig Counsell, because it happens all the time.
Right, yeah.
It goes both ways, right? Yes, there's absolutely no loyalty for the managers, for the coaches, however you want to term them in sport. But similarly, there's no loyalty for most of, the organizational presidents, the owners, whatever. I look no further than New England, right? Robert Kraft wasn't content to just get rid of Bill Belichick. He actually had to badmouth him when the Atlanta Falcons were considering hiring him. So, there's no loyalty in sports anymore.
It translates to everyday life too. If you just, I don't know why I'm getting that text, but whatever. It translates to everyday life. Just if you look in the corporate world too, I've been in places before. I'm actually in a pretty good spot right now, but I've been in places before where, new leadership enters the picture and, they've got their own people they want to bring in. And all of a sudden any continuity you might've had or consistency you might've had with a culture is changed. My dad, your dad's generation, I don't think they ran into that very often, right? They had that more longevity, that stability. Gosh, even in the corporate world or environment, it's one leadership change shakes things up. Now, it doesn't mean that things don't need that at times, because they do. There is that something to be said for that steadiness, right? And I don't know, anymore sports and baseball, it's just with just so much turnover. Like, can anybody, is this world now incapable of creating a strategy and executing it long term, or is everybody quick trigger finger to pull the plug and change direction just constantly, right? So constant change has become the norm, and previously we were used to watching a sport where, I just don't think we had to, that wasn't as much of a factor. I know the Cubs went through a lot of managers from the 80s, 90s. I get it. But I wasn't used to that. We were pretty steady. And now I'm looking at Ollie Marmol going, he's probably a pretty smart baseball guy if you sat down and talked to him. He's been around it enough, but I just don't feel like these guys can carry that clout anymore, or even given the room to build it.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to guarantee your continued employment is to win. And if you don't, you're immediately on the hot seat.
That doesn't even work.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You look at Mike Schilt.
Yeah.
Mike Schilt's a pretty good example where, whatever those philosophical differences were, no matter how much he won manager of the year, fired.
Yep.
That's aging well.
It is. Hey, speaking of aging well, and this is actually truly aging well. This is not one of those sarcastic tweets that you would see. But speaking of aging well, Ron, it was only a week ago that you told Cardinals fans to calm down because they were all bent out of shape because Tyler O'Neill was having an incredible start to the season.
No, he found his way back on the IL.
That's right. Just a couple days later, he ran over his all-star shortstop and sent himself to the IL. So
I tell you what, 8 stitches though the guy had to receive. I mean, that's that kind of stuff will happen, but hey, gravity is always one, and gravity in the IL, just between Tyler O'Neill and that injury list, man, that's gravity. You can't argue with science.
It was so funny that it was not 2-3 days after we recorded that it happened. And as soon as I saw the replay, I was just like, Ron's got to be giggling his head off right now.
I'm not giggling. When you see 8 stitches to your face, that sucks no matter who you are. But that's a freak accident. It's a collision. Like you get it. That kind of thing happens, right? But I'm telling you right now, I won't even count that one as, hey, I'm right. because I'm going to be right this year regardless, because he's going to come back from this little injury and he's going to get hurt again, and it's going to be one of those I pulled somethings.
Yeah, one of those soft tissue injuries, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So my advice still stands to all Cardinals fans out there and even Red Sox fans who are high on this. Calm the fuck down.
To give the guy credit, he did get off to a really good start for the year. But as you said, he came back down to earth.
7 home runs.
7 home runs, and he's going to be stuck at 7 for a while.
I mean, that might be how many. I think Cardinals have 13 as a total team. My son went to the game last night. He saw a burner.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch it at all?
No, we actually I did see a former Cardinal pitch for an inning, John Brebbia, in the Charlotte
Knights. I saw that. How did he look?
He looked pretty good. He's just on a quick rehab, and he'll be back on his way back to the South Side here soon. But yeah, we went to see the Charlotte Knights with my son's middle school baseball team. It's kind of their night, so we took it in. They were playing the Syracuse Mets. It's a minor league game. I tell you what, Charlotte does have a pretty nice AAA field, though, and the backdrop of that is kind of reminds me a little bit of like the St. Louis and Chicago backdrop, where you see city skyline, kind of in the background. So I think for AAA park, they've got it pretty well, and it's a fun place to take in a game. It started late with a rain delay. My daughter ate 2.5 hot dogs. Let me see, a helmet of Dipping Dots, Cracker Jacks, and a lemonade.
Wow. So you had a real easy time getting her to go to bed last night.
Oh, she crashed it. Sugar crash in the car on the way home.
Nice.
We're good.
Very good. You gotta think about those Sox farmhands, right? You're playing, as you said, a nice backdrop. You're playing in Charlotte and everything. And especially this year, you get the call up to the majors. Aren't you tempted to say, no, I'm good here. Thanks. I don't want to embarrass myself.
It was a beautiful night.
I mean, seriously, would you want to go to the South Side of Chicago right now? I mean, just because it's the South Side of Chicago, and also because this team has the potential to be historically terrible.
Bad. Well, yeah. I mean, but I think I hear what you're saying. Yes, the scenery in Charlotte and that stadium is going to be immensely better than what you're going to be able to see.
And safer.
What the hell is their park even called now?
Guaranteed Rate Field.
Guaranteed Rate Field just rolls off the tongue.
The biggest news out of the rate this year is their campfire milkshake, not their baseball. So that'll tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah. I don't doubt there's a player or two that has kind of went back and forth between Charlotte. I'm like, these home games in Charlotte, actually, I know it's not, I'm not getting a major league paycheck right now, so I'm sure that money makes up for that. But I guarantee you, in terms of scenery and shit, probably even, competitive sized crowd compared to what they're probably drawing on the South Side right now, Charlotte probably doesn't seem all that bad to some of those guys. I did see a Mets, their right fielder, Trace Thompson. I swear I've heard that name before.
Yeah, he's been
probably hit a 500-foot home run, completely out of the park. It was pretty incredible, and I saw it from just the right angle to be able to see the whole damn arch of the ball and everything. I'm like, wow, that was big dude. I don't know how tall he is, but his head almost went up past the right field wall. So he's a pretty big guy. I've heard that name before. I'm not sure how or where, but
so he debuted with the White Sox in 2015. He was drafted by the Dodgers. Debuted with the White Sox. He was traded. He was drafted by the White Sox. Was traded to the Dodgers for Todd Frazier. Some other players, but
been around a while now.
Yeah, 2015. And then also played for the A's, back to the White Sox, came to the Cubs in 21, and then Padres, Dodgers, and back to the Sox.
So let me guess, 4A player.
Yep, looks like it.
Crushed AAA pitching. And absolutely not major league pitching.
Yep. Oh, okay. And he's a big dude. He's the youngest son of Michael Thompson, who used to play for the Lakers. And his mom was a volleyball player for the University of Portland and the University of San Francisco.
There you go.
oh, his brother is Klay Thompson.
Okay.
Golden State Warriors.
Okay.
And he's a childhood friend of Nolan Arenado. The things you find out.
Things you learn.
Yeah. What do you know?
Thank you, Syracuse.
Yeah. How about that? Well, good for Trace on hitting a massive home run. He's 33 years old, by the way. So yeah, definitely if he's 33 and a AAA. Although he'll get some run with the White Sox this year because everybody gets to play. Because half their team's on the IL already.
And I should probably check out the Kannapolis Cannonballers too. They're single. I probably see some of those guys up there pretty soon.
You should. In fact, there's a kid from the area here, went to Downers Grove North, who was drafted by them in 23, and he was reassigned to Kannapolis again this year. Forget what his name is, but he's a big dude pitcher, and they describe him as being built like a tight end.
I tell you what, that's one thing they do right out here is pro ball. Even that single A Kannapolis field and Peoria was great. I think when it first opened, I don't know what it's called now, but I'm not talking old Vanaken Stadium where the Bradley Braves played soccer too. I'm talking about O'Brien Field, maybe it's still called, not sure. Peoria single A, but that was a pretty nice little park when it opened. But gosh, you should see this one at Kannapolis for single A. It's pretty impressive. Both their AAA and single A. The only problem I have out here is that they're White Sox affiliates. I would just about take anybody else. Seriously though, it's like you look at everybody else's minor league. Aren't they somewhat close-ish to the parent club?
Most of them. Yeah, you've seen a lot of that consolidation.
Yeah.
Of late, right? Because the Cubs, like one of theirs used to be down in Florida, right? They were in Iowa, they were in Florida. South Bend is a recent addition.
Well, the Cardinals single A is in Palm Beach, but Jupiter's right down there anyway, right?
Right, exactly.
Spring training complex. But yeah, they're high A's in Peoria, double A's in Springfield, Missouri, and triple A's in Memphis. So it's all like reasonable driving distance to St. Louis if they ever need to pluck any of those guys quickly. And I'm sure it's easier for the executive team and scouts and everything else to, make it from park to park. They're not, but Charlotte and Kannapolis for the White Sox, I don't get that one.
Me either.
Me, I don't even care if I get it or not, Pete. I just don't really want the White Sox in the neighborhood. I'd rather have anybody else, right? I'm not kidding. I'd rather have like a Cubs affiliate here because I think it would just be more interesting.
Well, you do. They're in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, it's still a good 4-hour drive for me.
Yeah. Well, but it's kind of in the neighborhood. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the Cubs have done the same thing in recent years. So now they obviously have the team in Tennessee, the AA team in Tennessee. They've got Iowa, and then they have South Bend. And I imagine the same way that the Cardinals do when they send particularly pitchers out on rehab assignments. They really look at keeping them as close as possible to Chicago, and then also weather and home and road, right? So that if the pitcher's ready, it's easier for them to get there. So that's definitely something.
I think a lot of the times they have a rehab. I feel like it's Springfield most of the time, which is right there in Missouri. It's not too far away.
Precisely. Yeah. And that's intentional, right? Is you want them to be as close as possible so that they're ready to go. You can get them there as quickly as possible. So,
yep.
Yeah. All right. So Ron, I have to get into my conspiracy theory because I was thinking about it. We'd obviously been talking about Shohei and about discipline and everything. And it came out this week that the NBA has permanently suspended or permanently banned Jonte Parker from the NBA for betting on games. And of course, that made me think about Shohei Ohtani, which then led me to think about the not official, apparently permanent ban of Trevor Bauer. Because nobody wants him. Now, I'm not saying he's a good guy. People may not enjoy playing with him, but it's hard to deny that he's a good player. And then I thought about something. Do you remember who was most critical of baseball and particularly Rob Manfred when it came to the use of foreign substances to achieve more spin rate?
Trevor Bauer.
Trevor Bauer. And now Trevor Bauer can't get a job in Major League Baseball, despite now I believe it's all four of his accusers having either been disproven and or charged with fraud. I don't know if you caught it in the last week, but 3 of his accusers have now been charged with fraud and of attempted extortion for the stories that they made up about Mr. Bauer. And now he can't get a job in Major League Baseball. And you kind of just wonder, has the edict gone out from Manfred because it's just a personal vendetta at this point? You talk bad about me. You embarrassed me. How you like this one? Go play in Mexico.
Yeah. Here's the thing with, I'm not sure how much pull. I know Manfred works for the owners guy. He works for these guys, but like that's the way I see the stream going, not the other way around. I'm legit surprised that somebody like Steve Cohen hasn't, picked him up.
I know,
because that owner seems like one you just can't. You
wouldn't care.
You wouldn't care what you thought. I don't know if it's so much that, Pete, as much as it is just, do they want his personality in the clubhouse? Maybe I think that probably has a little bit to do with it. Obviously there's a little bit of a public face thing kind of happening with Trevor Bauer. Do you really want to bring that in, that scrutiny that comes along with that, even though you're correct, like he's pretty much been found innocent of everything he's been accused of? But still, how the court of public opinion is in this day and age that we're in. You're guilty until proven innocent. And even when you're proven innocent, we still want you to be guilty. So that's how the world thinks, right?
Yep. And
I think there's probably a stigma. Well, not probably. There's a stigma that's hanging over him, and a lot of these clubs just don't want to bring that in. Plus, hey, look, from all things gathered, former teammates, former organizations, the guy's kind of an ass.
Right.
So maybe, it could be a reason. So I don't want to discount that either. But is it Manfred dictating, hey, I don't want this player in my league anymore? Owner's like, sure thing, Rob. Give him a salute. Sure thing, Rob. We'll follow your lead. No, I don't think much of baseball would care to do that.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Rob. He seems petty at times.
Well, there's lots of reasons to. I could see where you're coming from there. I think it's just more what Trevor Bauer carries with him, the baggage he carries with him, is why a lot of teams aren't just going to give him the time of day.
Yep.
Which, look, there have been assholes in the game before. I'm pretty sure Ty Cobb is a dick.
It's the reputation.
I think, Barry Bonds sure seemed happy every year he was playing. A lot of teammates wanted to punch him in the face. I'm sure Clemens had his moments too. Tommy Pham is certainly a charmer. He probably is a good teammate to a lot of people, but to
and
the
headed
media
to the South Side any day.
Oh boy. Yeah, so my 10-year-old was talking shit to this Trace Thompson in the right field because we're sitting in right field. I had to pull him away from the fence line. And it's my 11-year-old now, who doesn't really care about baseball so much, but it's a team. It's a guy in a gray uniform, not the home team, and so he was just heckling him.
Yeah,
that would have been Tommy Pham. Probably
Tommy Pham would have climbed up into the stands and beat your kid. And then taking his popcorn.
But I guess the point is, there are guys with, personalities that we all have heard about or read about. And, teams deal with it. If you need that talent, if you need something to push you over the hump, it seems like some of those guys are given the benefit of the doubt. At least, hey, we're going to get out of you what we can. And yeah, sure, we're happy to send you on your way in the off season, but we kind of need you for this playoff push, right?
Yep.
I think Pham probably falls into that category. Who couldn't, if you were suffering so much on the pitching side and that's all you needed? It's hard to believe a Manfred mandate, a Rob mandate, would prevent a team from doing that.
I think it would take.
That's what I can't get past.
I think you're right. I think it would take somebody like a Steve Cohen who just doesn't care and who doesn't feel any loyalty to Rob Manfred or to anybody in the front office, right? Like you couldn't see. If you were just looking at relationships, like you wouldn't see Jed Hoyer sign him, right? Because there's a loyalty to Theo, and I know he's not in the main office anymore, but right or wrong, I think that he wouldn't want to be seen as doing bad by Theo. I think the same thing would be true of Jerry Reinsdorf. DeWitt, right? They have relationships with Rob Manfred, so you could definitely see them also not wanting to break bad on their friend. So
one angle I can see working, Pete, is that if there's an owner who wants to not give Manfred any reason down the road if their organization screws up, to levy that harsh punishment. If you're the one that signs somebody like that maybe Manfred doesn't want any part of, you're the team who signs him, and then later on, you screw up on the international draft, or you pull some, I'm going to use one of your words, skullduggery like the Braves did. Maybe he comes down a little bit harder on you.
Yep.
So maybe there's a little bit there.
Maybe. So Ron, in the last week, unfortunately, the Cardinals have not upheld their part of the bargain. Last week when we recorded, we were able to brag that the NL Central was the best division in baseball because every team was at or above 500.
I know they're anchoring it down.
The Cardinals refusing. So now we have to acknowledge that the AL East is the best division because every team is over 500.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cardinals 9-11. I was really pulling for them last night. I was pulling for them to get back to 500 so that we could record this, and also so that the Cubs would be in first place.
I guarantee you, my 19-year-old was too, because he attended the game and saw a scoreless effort, and the only way they tied it was a bases-loaded walk before they went into extra innings. So if you look at it, it's opposite of what we were seeing last year. The pitching is actually holding up in a lot of the categories. They are in the top third of the league. I'm not saying they have a dynamite staff, but the pitching hasn't been the problem. Bullpen's actually performed pretty well too. But if you look at offensively, where they were above average in a lot of places last year, they scored plenty of runs to win. There was some inconsistency, but the offense wasn't the issue last year. I think everybody agrees with that. So far, the offense has totally been the issue this year. Their hot hitter is Mason Wynn. Walker has looked pretty bad. Paul Goldschmidt, awful. Nolan Gorman, 0 for 5 last night. Struck out to end the game, taking a pitch. After, I swear, I don't know, this should be a poll question. Is Nolan Gorman, is he just automatically down 1-2, 0-2 before he even steps to the plate? Because it feels that way. Because that dude is always behind in the count. Some people will say, well, it's luck. He fouled off some really good pitches. Okay. They've got gaps in their lineup that's causing just major issues, and it's all like in the middle of that lineup. The guys that are supposed to be providing some punch are not, and you've got guys at the very end of the lineup who are providing the offense, and that's not going to win you anything. And it's been their ability to score runs. That's what's done them in. That's what's kept them at or just under 500. And you'd have to think that some guys will come around. Certainly Paul Goldschmidt cannot stay this bad. I mean, did he fall off a cliff? Right, that's the worry. Can Jordan Walker just not hit a ball in the air? And can Nolan Gorman just not hit anything? Those are pretty big guys that you need, and they're just not getting the job done.
Yeah, you look at the team standings, and obviously this isn't a standing, but still, in all of Major League Baseball, the Cardinals have only outscored 5 other teams, and barely outscored a 6th, that being the Twins. But the Twins also have only played 18 games, and they still have scored more runs. Or no, they haven't yet, but they've played 18. The Cardinals have played 20. So. And they've also outscored who I just had them here, the Mariners. But again, the Mariners have only played 19 games, so doubtful that they'll score 6 today to overtake
the offense. The Cardinals for the last 3 years have been operating like a stroke. One side's working, the other one's not, and that's the way it's happening this year.
I tell you, it is kind of funny to look at the standings, and the Cardinals actually. You're right. They haven't been scoring, but the good thing is that their pitching has done well, right? They've only allowed 81 runs. Yeah. So their run differential, a -10 for a last place team, that's not bad. It kind of indicates that they can turn things around and turn it around rather quickly. All they need to do is just get a little bit better on the off. No, I know that's
if they could get their offense to the mean, not even spectacular, they'd be better off. And
right, they'd be in the middle of the pack in the division.
You would think that they could do that, but I mean, look, I didn't think the pitching could be as awful as it was last year either. But so I mean, Well, there's time to find out, and I don't think there's much cause to panic at this point. You got to think that. I mean, with Walker, you don't know. I mean, we don't know. We haven't seen him have, a sustained long-term run of success offensively. We haven't seen that yet. He's still very young. Nolan Gorman, he's getting close to falling into my category of Randall Grichuk, Tyler O'Neill, not from an injury standpoint, but just in terms of consistency, right? In terms of being like that player you don't want to see up like exactly in the position he was last night. Like that's not the bat that I want to see there with 2 outs. And
what's got to be frustrating too, and obviously the Cubs have had these players over the years too, is the multiple chances that they're given. Right?
Yep.
You're like, hey, look, you gave up on Alcantara, or I mean, a Rosarina, right? You cut bait on Adolis Garcia, and yet you continue to give these guys multiple chances.
Give Tyler O'Neill and Harrison Bader multiple years to try to figure it out, and they couldn't.
Yep.
The thing to keep an eye on, do these guys figure it out once they get out of the organization? Now, Bader didn't. But you'll see if a guy like O'Neill actually figures it out somewhere. I wouldn't have high hopes for that, Boston fans. But yeah,
although
so
who knows? Maybe that kind of getting traded. Maybe it humbles him a little bit because, the thing that always rubbed me the wrong way, and I kind of got the sense that it rubbed you a little, was how fawning fans were over Tyler O'Neill simply because of how he looked.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder if that didn't go to his head. So one of two things, either a little humble pie being traded away from the organization, or maybe he just needs an even bigger, a bigger city like a Boston or a New York to really thrive, because that's the environment in which he'll do best. We'll see what happens with him once he returns from his latest injury.
Well, I don't. It'll be something. There's always those people in your life that, man, there's always something with you.
Right?
There's always a family emergency, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. And he's that type of guy. It's like, Jesus Christ, there's always something with you.
Yep.
And those are the people I hate working with. Maybe that's what gets to me. But yes, the Cardinals fans, the Twitter fans, they're the most annoying ones when it came to Bader and O'Neill and some of these other guys. Like, yeah, just they fans tend to sour me on players probably quicker than I normally would.
So I can't get away from this. I know that I mentioned it before about their historic awfulness, and I can't wait. I'm going to catch a game with a White Sox friend of mine this summer. You think it's bad being a Cardinals fan this year. Well, all the Cardinals fans are clearly frustrated so far this year, but the White Sox have averaged 2 runs a game to this point. Could you imagine getting through a season and your team only scores 300 runs?
But is this a tanking effort, or is this just they're just listless?
Well, I think they're listless. There's clearly some significant injuries, but I just think that this is a bad team. Just bad.
Bad organization, really.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's a bad organization, ultimately. Yeah, it is. I feel for my friends, but not too bad.
I don't.
Well, I was hoping that Elliott would be here to join us, because I had written down that we were going to brag a little bit and make you feel bad about the Dodgers screwing up and giving the Cubs a potential Rookie of the Year candidate in Michael Busch, but just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just leave that one out there.
If you've learned anything from Cardinals X, declarations are the worst.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely.
Wait and see, right? Like, and I almost say with rookies, hey, nothing wrong with getting excited about them. Even if they have a good rookie campaign, awesome. Check yourself until about midway through their second full year.
Right.
Because you've seen it before. Jerome Walton.
Corey Patterson.
Yeah. And, gosh, I remember Jerome Walton, right? Had that wide open batting stance center fielder. Good player. Great player.
He was
first year.
For a year.
And then what happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that year, right? 1-2 in the Rookie of the Year campaign. Jerome Walton and Dwight Smith. We thought we were set up in the outfield for a decade.
Forgot about him. He ended up playing. Both ended up. I think Dwight Smith had a little bit longer career
in Japan.
I thought he stuck around the bigs a few years after he left Chicago.
He did, because he went to the Braves.
That's right. Yes, he went to the Braves. I don't know what. Didn't Walton go to the Braves too?
I think Walton bounced around.
Yeah, he bounced around, but I thought he was with Atlanta briefly. I don't know. I don't know how I could get him and Marquise Grissom confused, but maybe I am. But yeah, so fans out there, like, check your rookies until one and a half full seasons. They're still doing it, man. You probably have something. Buy the jersey then. There's my thing. Buy the jersey 18 months in to their MLB career, if they're still doing it. Don't do it before.
Okay. So I was thinking of the wrong guy for Japan. Dwight Smith played about 10 years, ended with the Braves.
Yeah,
of course, was thinking of Tuffy Rhodes, who went to Japan and blew up after he had that big debut game where he had, 3 home runs? I think it was 3 or 4 home runs. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and Jerome Walton debuted with the Cubs in '89, won Rookie of the Year. Finished his career with the Devil Rays in 1998.
There you have
it. I mean, not terrible. A 269 batting average. Not that matters anymore. We know that.
Spectacular today, right?
Today, right?
Yeah.
269 batting average with 25 home runs and 58 stolen bases. That's not good for a speed guy. 58 stolen bases in 10 years.
Oh, you got to get on base, I guess. What was his on base percentage?
I'm sure it was terrible. He played 3 seasons with the. He played 4 seasons with the Cubs for a combined 254 games, where he batted as high as 263 in 1990 and as low as 127 in 1992.
Those early 90s were spectacular for the Cubs and Cardinals, right?
My God.
1990 all the way up through 1995 was just like a black hole.
Yep.
For baseball in my life. I remember watching. The Cardinals had a very young team there, but that was Joe Torre's Cardinals era too.
Yeah.
They just didn't give him much. And then, hey, look, like, send him to a stacked New York group, and wow, he's Hall of Fame manager now.
Right. And so it's one of two things, right? Was it entirely the talent? Was it the manager? Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Anyway,
all right.
Yeah, to end it, Shohei's completely innocent of everything.
Yes, of course he is.
So we just want to clarify the record where we stand on that. We were all wrong.
Yes,
the Dodgers have done no wrong. It's all on the interpreter. 100% him.
100%.
Everybody move on.
That's right. Nothing to see here. I'm
not moving on. I'm not moving on. We all know there's a this doesn't smell right, doesn't pass the sniff test. We all know that, but our only recourse is to bitch about it for a few years, and then we're just going to have to get on with life.
That's right.
And there you have it.
Ron, Soccer Minute. Who does City play tonight?
They play their cross-state rival, Sporting Kansas City, tonight at 8:30 on the East Coast. Disappointed my camera didn't work because I'm wearing my Road Confluence jersey, so I'm kind of pissed that the camera wouldn't work. But so KC was probably one of the better teams in MLS the back half of last year. They did actually knock City out of the playoffs in 2 games. Very similar records. They put similar points on the standings, so it should be a good game. A little bit of nervousness on the behalf of City fans. One of their strikers, Sam Adeniran, not practicing with the team this week, not training with them. Sorry, they really don't use the word practice. Not training with the team this week. Wasn't on their available roster last week either. Tied for the team lead in goals. An explosive player, but very raw. And if you look at statistics on him, he doesn't like to pass very much either. I sense, and I could be wrong, the thing is with MLS, Pete, you just can't go and read all the crap like you can in the other sports. Like it's baseball is smothered in coverage. Like you can just about find about anything that's going on. It's not that way in the MLS. You really have to hunt down information. But what this feels like to me is they got a little bit of a diva on the team. And Coach Carnell says, hey, during game day, we're going to focus on, players that bring a certain level of intensity, work ethic, and boy, you can stop right there. And it tells you just about everything you need to know if the coach is saying that. So, when nobody else wanted Sam Bedenter and St. Louis threw money at him to bring him over. And he's a good player to bring in late in the games. You get him out ahead of everybody. He's got a very strong left foot and he can bury it past just about any goalie in the league. But they're not going to, hold on. Our friend Dustin's typing stuff and I just noticed it. I'll read that in a second. So a little bit of controversy there, a little bit of nervousness. They lost a player, Nico Giacchini, scored 10 goals for him last year. He was one of the attackers. You had Klaus and you had a Denerin. So you kind of had like a three-headed monster that you could put in there, mix and match them. And you're down two of those guys. So now the question is going to be, where does the offense, come from in City? Is the team going to set Klaus up and support him a little bit more? Because he's a good player. He creates chances, but the support around him just isn't the same as it was a year ago. So they'll have their work cut out for them. We'll see what they do here at the transfer window. I know I went past a minute, Pete. You're going to give me a minute for this. But yeah, it'll be a good game tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. Just got to get one Little League game out of the way in between and be back in the garage and firing it up. So we'll be back with At the Park STL episode tomorrow. Quick, I like those little 20, 30-minute spurts. That's about all I have in the tank to talk about soccer anyway, since I'm so limited on my I'm not very nuanced when it comes to talking about it. I am purely just like, the dad watching his kid play soccer in high school, getting excited about it, wanting to talk about it. But after about 20 minutes, I kind of start running out of shit. So that's why I have Christian here to help.
Love it.
Yep. So tune in. Yeah,
tune in. And, as Ron said, Dustin commenting in the chat, and we can't let that pass.
Nope.
1990, Ron stops collecting baseball cards and starts collecting phone numbers.
Collecting phone numbers. That was a thing, wasn't it?
It was. And now you can't at all.
Is the term I got digits when you're out at a bar? Is that even a thing anymore?
No, I think it's I got her snap.
Careful.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. The kids exchange their Snapchat QR codes or whatever.
Or it's like so and so I got a follow from her.
Yeah, precisely.
Kind of it's no more like we've retired the whole phrase, "Hey boys, I got digits."
That's right.
All right.
No more digits.
All these Cardinal Red Jackets die. Whitey Herzog passes away. We don't collect digits anymore. I might as well just walk off the cliff. I'm done. I hate life these days.
And if you enjoyed this episode and hate life as much as Ron, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And we also occasionally live stream on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, although it's been kind of regular the last couple of weeks. We may be a Saturday show after all. Be sure to check out. What's that?
I am liking the Saturdays.
Me too. We just got to, since it's not a national holiday for Elliott next week, maybe
Elliott's he's got to pull him out of soccer so you can join us on time.
Well, that or else, he just needs to stop celebrating 420 at 8 o'clock in the morning. Be sure to check out the other Gateway City and Fuel Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show, the X-Fan Show, Talking Sports on the Bleachers with Don Glenn, and of course, you can catch it tomorrow, the aforementioned At the Park STL. You can find Elliott on X at TOR_Elliott, and you can find Ron at.
Yeah, I would say it on the screen. TOR_Ron75.
Maybe one of these days I'll add it up as another overlay. You can find Gateway City at Gateway City SPRT, and you can find Fuel at Fuel_SN. Get in touch with us at any social media channel at Team Arrivals Pod. And with that, happy Sunday, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.